There's that famous saying by an American president, I think it was Roosevelt, he said, "There is nothing to fear but fear itself." Well, that's something to fear. Someone who's loving in the most profound sense, they have come to the realization that there's nothing to fear, not even fear. So self-love, self-care is very much about looking at one's fears, looking at others' fears, not judging them. And I would say that's the first and last step to becoming calm, because all our neurosis, all our upset is founded in this identity that is frightened, whether frightened of fear or frightened of endless shadows in the mind. My understanding of an enlightened person is that in general, in this world, enlightened people are quite rare, because they've ended fear in their minds. And there's so many fears, they're endless, almost endless. And that doesn't mean if you stand off, on the side of a big cliff and you look down, that you can't have a healthy sense of your mortality if you take another step, That's just intelligence that comes with the body. But, the secret to remaining calm is to observe your triggers. People, especially your close family members or your partner or something, they know you really well, and there'll be things that they do that will really trigger you. And the question you have to ask is, are those triggers me not taking heed of their message a sign of my own sadomasochism, like being in a relationship that's toxic, because I'm frightened of being alone? Or are they triggers that are useful for me to look at my judgments and drop them? And there are only two kind of triggers that you have, because you can have a healthy trigger that says, hey, you're in the wrong place here for your development. You're not in a healing, happy place. Or if you really love someone and you're having issues in the relationship, both of you, all those triggers mirrors to the lack of patience, the lack of affection, the lack of connection, the walls you bring up in your mind. And if the lack of calm comes from, let's say you've been raped and you're around a man who you find condescending and pushy, how do you remain calm around that kind of energy? Maybe he's not a rapist, but maybe he triggers you, from these old experiences. I think everyone to a degree has their version of that experience, has some trauma in the past, and they meet someone and that person is relatively innocent, they haven't done anything wrong, but you project your past pains onto them. And how do you remain calm in the presence of an individual that brings that stuff up for you? There's only one real way to do that. And I suppose the comic kind of version is just kill them, like in the animations, like we handle those feelings of upset by, you see Tom and Jerry going through endless, machinations where Tom gets like basically destroyed, but he's in a cartoon and he comes back to life. So, Jerry does some pretty sadistic things to Tom, and Tom's out to kill Jerry. So it's like Tom and Jerry is sort of a reflection of, in comedic form, of the tragedy of triggers ruling our minds. So I think the only way you can remain calm, it's in a sort of meta sense, you have to develop a feeling of compassion for mentally ill people. And by mentally ill people in this case, I mean abusive people. I mean people that do things that are cruel, that try and hurt others. Because only wounded people hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. If you're enlightened, you're not going around hurting other people, because you see everyone as a reflection of yourself, and what you see in yourself is pushed out onto others and gets reflected back. So if you see a monster in someone, that's a reflection of how you see yourself. So I think the key quality to developing calm in the face of very difficult situations is patience and tolerance, because where there's tolerance, there's the ending of judgment. And honesty, like I remember years ago I was in a sweat lodge, and I very much enjoy going into saunas and things like that. That's hot springs and saunas is probably one of the few hobbies I have left. If I get the opportunity, I love to go to them. But I was in this sauna in downtown Los Angeles, the Crenshaw district, I think. And there was an older black lady who was running it. And there was a large group of people. And I honestly knew that it was time for me to step out. I needed a break. My body said, that's it. And she was trying to lay down the law and say, no, you have to stay. Like, we do it this amount of time. And I said, I'll come back in when I'm cooler. So listening honestly to what's relatively true for you in any given circumstance is wise, because if you stay around and someone's just hitting you and attacking you with thoughts or fists or whatever, you may be wise to just leave the environment where there's that toxic energy. And then another quality is just trust. What do you trust in? On the money in America, quite ironically, and I've studied the history of how this came about, it's been there for, I think, just under 100 years, or maybe a bit more than that now, but not much more, somewhere around that age of time. It says, in God we trust. On the money. We trust in insurance companies, and we trust in health insurance, and we have all these externals, and I'm not judging or condemning or saying they're bad, but we tend to trust in how much money is in our bank account. We tend to trust in so many external things. But so by trust, I mean like a sort of trust in self. Forget God or whatever, if you want to invest in that, that's fine, but not the ego, but what lies behind the ego. That all these experiences that are unfolding in my life, you have seen enough evidence by now, a sort of trust has developed because of that evidence, that what's unfolding is for your greater good. That doesn't mean you stay in a steam sauna at the point where it's too much, and someone is saying, oh no, you've got to stay, it's important, and you're like, well, no, it's not. My health is important. I've reached my limit. So you have this inner voice that guides you. And then I think a big quality of remaining calm is open-mindedness, because like it could be that someone's challenging you in an arena of your mind where you're just plain wrong. Or it could be that they're wrong in their argument, but remaining open-minded and loving, that the argument is less important than the love between you, keeps you calm. And then a certain faith that the avenue of your learning to trust is meaningful. These are critical aspects to this character that is calm. Also, when you can look into this idea that the slightest irritation magnified is murder. And you say, well, this person killed my kid's sister. Of course there's going to be grief. Of course there's going to be pain. And, I remember a friend in Paris, an older friend, he's dead now, but he once said, of the two people that I'm about to say the same sentence with, which character is more frightening to you? I'm going to kill you! Or, I'm going to kill you. Well, the person who's calm, right? So you can have psychopaths that are very calm and disassociated from deeper feelings, or indifferent to your feelings. And that's what the Nazi regime was. They just saw the gypsies and the mentally handicapped and the Jews as vermin. They saw them with indifference. So I'm not talking about that kind of sadistic calm. But calm develops in a mind that is determined, the quality of calm, it develops in a mind that's determined to see beyond neurosis in itself. And some of the most together, organized, sophisticated people are among the most neurotic. So success in the world is often bound to neurosis. Like, do I look good enough? Am I important enough? Do I make enough money? Am I an asset to my family? All these things that guilt can attach itself to. So the development of real calm involves a deep questioning about your nature. I don't mean temporary calm. I don't mean artificial calm. I don't mean the mask of calm. So you can do your job professionally and, people will say, well, they're so placid, when under the surface there's all this upset. That's not calm. That's a mask of calm. Calm is a side effect of an enlightened mind. Temporary calm is a side effect of a neurotic mind.